is selection 852 in the blue hymnal. The sung response is played first before the reading.
Okay, let's try the response. Okay. I sing your praise for steadfast love, fulfill your purpose in me.
I give you thanks, O Lord, with my whole heart.
Before the gods, I sing your praise
I bow down toward your holy temple.
and give thanks to your name for your steadfast love and your faithfulness,
For you have exalted your name.
and your word above everything.
On the day I called, you answered me.
You increased my strength of soul. I sing your praise for steadfast love, fulfill your purpose in me.
All the kings of the earth shall praise you, O Lord.
For they have heard the words of your mouth.
They shall sing of the ways of the Lord.
Great is the glory of the Lord.
For though the Lord is high, he regards the lowly.
But the haughty he receives from far away. I sing your praise for steadfast love, fulfill your purpose for me.
Though I walk in the midst of trouble, you stretch out your hand.
And your right hand delivers me.
The Lord will fulfill his purpose for me.
Your steadfast love, O Lord, endures forever. Do not forsake the work of your hands. I sing your praise for steadfast love, fulfill your purpose for me.
The Old Testament reading is Isaiah chapter 6, verses 1 through 8. Please stand for the reading as you are able.
We sing number 52 as a response to this, so be ready for the singing of hymn number 52 after he reads the Isaiah passage.
In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne high and lofty, and the hem of his robe filled the temple. Seraphs were in attendance above him. Each had 6 wings. With 2 they covered their faces, and with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they flew. And one called to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. The pivots on the threshold shook as the voices of those who called, and the house filled with smoke. And I said, Woe is me, I am lost, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips. Yet my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then one of the seraphs flew to me, holding a live coal that had been taken from the altar with a pair of tongs. The seraph touched my mouth with it and said, Now this has touched your lips. Your guilt has departed, and your sin is blotted out. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? And I said, Here I am, send me.
Number 52. Holy, holy, holy Lord, God of power and might, heaven and earth are filled with your glory. Holy, holy, holy Lord, God of
gospel lesson is Luke chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. You may sit for the reading. Once, while Jesus was standing beside the lake of Gennesaret, and the crowd was pressing in on him to hear the word of God, he saw two boats there at the shore of the lake. The fishermen had gotten out of them and were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little way from the shore. Then he sat down and taught the crowds from the boat. When he was finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into the deep water and let down your nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, we have worked all night long, but have caught nothing. Yet if you say so, I will let down the nets." When they had done this, they caught so many fish that their nets were beginning to burst. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both boats so that they began to sink. But when Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knee, saying, "Go away from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." For he and all who were with him were astounded at the catch of fish that they had been taken. And so also were James and John, son of Zebedee, who were partners of Simon. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on you will be catching people." When they had brought their boats to shore, they left everything and followed him. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. So maybe as we begin, do you want to make any comments? I'm going to be using both the Isaiah and the Gospel to kind of preach from. Is there any comments that you want to make? Is there anything that stood out to you about these two texts? Yeah? Oh. Because of, yeah. Yeah. Yep. Uh-huh. Yeah. And yeah. Which one? The Isaiah one or both? The Luke one. It does appear in all four Gospels. It's not unique to Luke's at all. So it is picked up by all of the Gospels, which just suggests that this is an important story. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. Well, every time these texts come alive, I always read the Isaiah one, and I always have this fantasy of really trying to bring that to life somehow. I mean, it's fabulous words. I mean, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole world is full of your glory. And it's impossible to capture the power of this moment. But Isaiah chose to mark the day specifically in time. The king is dead. The king is dead. In the year King Uzziah died. Now Uzziah had been one of Israel's most successful kings. He had ruled for 52 years, which is just really incredible for a king. And he had done very well. It had been a time of economic prosperity. It had been a time of political stability there. And yet in his later years, as it seems like it happens with all kings, the power seeps in, and that bile seeps in, and he turned away from God in the latter years, and he became proud. But in that year that King Uzziah died, you notice that they don't talk about who is going to be the next earthly king. That is all secondary stuff. What is primary is the reign of the eternal God. What is primary is God, Yahweh's reign. And what has happened now, there in the temple, and this is the second temple, one Isaiah has an encounter with the holy. And like all divine encounters, it terrifies. For it is understood that if one sees God, what happens? You die. And so this whole thing is filled with a lot of terror and fear. One shall not live. A direct encounter is a terminal encounter. But this one is different. It proves not terminal, but transformative for it. I remember when we went to St. John Divine in New York City, and we went to Paul Winter's concert every year. And they had a very large gong, large, like 6 foot in diameter. And they lifted up this gong with this guy on it, and he was beating this gong and lifted it all the way up from the top of the cathedral. It was just, unbelievably spectacular. It's just phenomenal. But Isaiah sees God high and lifted up on a throne. He sees also seraphs. Seraphs are divine beings with 6 wings. With 2 they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet. Feet here is a euphemism for genitals. No nakedness is allowed in the presence of God, and with 2 they flew. He sees and he hears as the seraphs praise God. Then he smells incense. He sees, he hears, he smells, and now he tastes. Because Isaiah acknowledges his uncleanliness and the people's uncleanliness in the presence of God in the temple. And so the seraphs, they bring the hot coals to him, and they sear his mouth. Just as the high priest intoned, so the seraphs proclaim, your guilt has departed, and your sin is blotted out. He is now made ready to hear fully God's incredible invitation. He sees, he hears, he smells, he tastes, and the whole temple begins to rock. It rocks on its very foundations. His encounter is not terminal, but it's transformational. Other earthly. That's why you probably thought it came from Revelations. But this is Isaiah's vision, and this is Isaiah's call into ministry. Now, it is the duty of all prophets, Ezekiel and Elisha, Jeremiah and Amos, and if you want to even go further with that, Moses and Joshua and John the Baptist in some way, and Jesus himself. They must do what is so very difficult. They must utter the unutterable. They have got to say to the people what nobody in their right mind would say to the people. They have got to confront the people. They must do the impossible. They must criticize so to dismantle the dominant consciousness, to awaken the weariness, to break up and get rid of the tired misconceptions of what is going on. They must criticize, but then they got to energize. They have to energize the people around a whole new vision which they have forgotten. They must criticize and energize around an alternative vision of life with God. What a job. Criticize, energize, worn out people around a new social and theological reality. And so now we're going to pick up the gospel reading. Jesus on the shore of Lake Gennesaret. Gennesaret is just an old name for the Sea of Galilee. I always was wondering, what is that? It's just an old name for the Sea of Galilee. And so this probably would have been a little bit more embarrassing if many people were here, but I'm hoping you're not going to leave me hanging here. So we're going to sing. And I want you to sing with me, okay? I think there will be a few of you who will know this tune. I will make you fishers of men, fishers of men, fishers of men. I will make you fishers of men if you follow me. If you follow me. If you follow me. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum, bum. I will make you fishers of men if you follow me. Now, I probably learned that song in the choir room. I probably learned it in choir room, right. We would have gathered all together. That was the opening exercises for Vacation Bible School. That's what it had been. And traditionally, it was an evangelism tune, right? You can just imagine, it was an evangelist. It's like, you are to recruit. You are to go and bring people in. You are to go out and you are to save souls. It had its time and place. But if we leave this story there in our 8-year-old minds, we lose the real power of it. The power, and we will kind of trivialize the moment, which was a moment of defiance, a moment of resistance, and renewal. And we can't. So we need to go deeper with this story. So last week, I think it was last week, the stewardship and finance team met together with our investment people. And you should probably know, I like our investment people. They're two guys that are, I think that they're pretty good, and they've done well for our community. It's interesting because they play off of each other very well. Because one of them, Mark, was a stockbroker from Wall Street. So he is much more aggressive in doing his thing. And Mike is not that. He's a Worcester guy. And so he's always kind of pulling Mark back, and Mark is always trying to push him a little bit forward. So it's really a good balance, and I really like them, and they've done really well for us. But when we met together, Mark, Wall Street guy, he said it 3 times, I think. he said was that the economy runs on two things. There it is. Yes? Okay. Economy runs on two things. It's driven by two things. Fear and greed. Fear. And he said that 3 different times in this time that we were together. And so I began to think about it. It began to run through my mind. Fear and greed, fear and greed, fear and greed. Yeah. Really, so much of our world runs on fear and greed. The Sea of Galilee. The Sea of Galilee is the lowest freshwater body, in the whole world. The lowest freshwater body of water in the whole world. And it was the economic driver for first century Palestine. The most prosperous industry in Jesus' world was the Sea of Galilee. And so after Caesar Augustus died, Tiberius ascended to the throne. And so they kind of cut up the territories there, and a guy named Herod Antipas was given administrative authority over Galilee and Perea. And one of the first things that he did when he ascended his throne was something that was very strange, and I've told you this before. But the palace was in a city called Sepphoris. And it was inland just a little bit. It was a gorgeous, gorgeous palace. And it got winds that would come from the lake, which was probably 30 miles or so, from it. But it would get these cooling winds. It was set up high, and it would get these cooling winds, and so it was very, very comfortable. It was a fabulous, fabulous palace. But what Herod Antipas did was, he moved the palace. Well, he actually had to build a whole new palace on the southwest shore of the Sea of Galilee. And if you think of what the Sea of Galilee, at that time there were lots of reeds, it was muddy, it was mosquito-y, it was terrible. And you go, what in the world was he thinking? To go from that beautiful, beautiful site up there and shift everything down there. Herod abandoned his palace to build a new palace at the new city. He named it Tiberias as a way of gaining favor, of course, with the one who was on the throne. But he did it for one reason. You know what the reason was? Well, yeah, he kind of did live his life like that. But he did it for one thing, fish. Fish. He did it for one reason, fish. The lake was the lowest lake in the world, and it was ground zero for Rome's efforts to exploit and extract resources from those who were simply trying to eke out a subsistence kind of life there on the shores of Galilee. By placing this administrative center there on the shore, Herod now controlled everything fish. All fishing became state regulated. And you think, I can't imagine this. Every time I think of the Bible and fishing, to have it, state regulated. I'm thinking about, every year I have to go on internet and get a fishing license, the main state, whatever. Well, it has now become state regulated. They control the sale of fishing leases, without which the locals could no longer fish. They couldn't fish on their own. Such leases were normally awarded not to individuals, but to small kinship groups So, like Simon and Andrew and the Zebedee family. Second, local toll collectors taxed fish products and their processing, levying duties on product transport. So they were having to sell all of their fish to the state, and then when they had to get it from this place to that place, they were imposed heavy taxes to get it to those places. So this isn't, James and John getting some fish for the family to eat any longer, or for the community to have some fish in it. This was a whole industry now. This was a whole imperial industry. Fish for centuries were harvested in a sustainable fashion for local consumption by peasants and their families. But increasingly, now they were part of the imperial industry, processing product into salt, preserve, or fish sauce for export. The town grew, infrastructure, got a nice harbor, they got roads, processing factories, but new regulations benefited the wealthy and the managerial class, while the subsistence of living peasant boatmen, who they depended on to get the product, was crushed. Absolutely crushed. And so when Jesus shows up at the lake, a story that is narrated in all the Gospels, he walked into a depleted, distressed economic workforce. Boom for a few, bust for most. Industry enriched the few, impoverished the rest. It's an old story. So when Jesus walked up to them onto the shore, he would have found a friendly audience who were looking for a way out and a new way of living. People who really had not much to lose, actually. As imperial power had shredded their ability to provide for their families and have a somewhat decent life. So Jesus didn't have to criticize much to get them thinking. That was already clear. But now he needed to energize them around a new vision, a paradigm shift toward a radically alternative vocation. And so seeing the boat, he says, push out. Push out a little bit. Let me speak to the people. And so they pushed out and Jesus spoke to the people. But then Jesus says what? Even before that, go further and go deeper. Push out into the deeper water. Think about in that one statement. Push out into deeper water. But they push back against him, saying, they have done this all night. No, go out into deeper water. So deeper water is thought of historically about chaos. And it brings up, fear. Deeper water, we sometimes think fear. Call to deeper water is the invitation. Is that invitation going to be life-affirming? Or should we stick it out on the shore? By which are you going to measure your life? By invitation to go to deeper water or to go on shore? The invitation to go deeper is frightening as hell for them. What is required of me, Lord? And what am I willing to risk? We've worked all night. Nothing. Put out the nets on the other side. Lord, all night. Nothing. It was true. Actually, local waters, now fully industrialized, were beginning to be fished out. Lord, all night, nothing. But they put out onto the other side, and the nets boiled with fish. Boiled with fish, so many that the nets began to tear and the boats began to sink. Now, Ched Myers says, the mystical yet material moment symbolizes the abundance of creation restored. A glimpse of how their waters used to be before the artificial scarcity wrought by empire. Creation, rightly shared, sustains everybody. Everybody. The pie is big enough for everybody, rightly shared, starting with the poorest. But the fear is understandable, and it signals a wary realism. This copious catch that they have would certainly be criminalized by the authority as contraband, inspired by some itinerant preacher who didn't even have a fishing license. Should they joyfully gather that windfall up? Or should they run for the hills? Get back on shore. Jesus understands and is filled with compassion, but still he invites them to leave their fear, to let go of the fear, offering them an alternative way of life, a new vision, a new vocation. Because from now on, it's going to be people over fish. People over fish. The world is too often driven by fear and greed. With Jesus, it's people over fish. And the reason is that Jesus is going to be true to that first sermon that he gave in that synagogue. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. From now on, it's people over fish. There's a wonderful hymn. The hymn is number 333. Let's stand as we sing. We can, yeah, we'll do English, but maybe we'll do one verse of Spanish. Lord, you have come to the lake shore. looking neither for wealthy nor wise ones. You only asked me to follow humbly. O Lord, with your eyes you have searched me, and while smiling have spoken my name. Now my boat's left on the shoreline behind me. By your side I will seek other seas. You know so well my possessions. My boat carries no gold and no weapons. You will find there my nets and labor. Lord, with your eyes you have searched me, and while smiling have spoken my name. Now my boat's left on the shoreline behind me. By your side I will seek other seas. You need my hands full of caring through my labors to give others rest, and constant love that keeps on loving. Oh Lord, with your eyes you have searched me, and while smiling has spoken my name. Now my boat's left on the shoreline behind me. By your side I will seek other seas. You who have fished other oceans, ever long for by souls who are waiting, my loving friend, so now you call me. O Lord, with your eyes you have searched me, and while smiling have spoken my name. Now my boat's left on the shoreline behind me. By your side